Welcome to the James Museum's special exhibition From Far East to West, the Chinese-American Frontier. This exhibition presents narratives of Chinese America from the 1850s to the 1930s. The paintings, all created recently by Chinese-American artists, reflect inspiration from this history and their own more recent immigration experiences in search of greater opportunity. Their historical interpretations, along with related objects and ephemera from the period, speak to culture, identity, and resilience. While European American settlers pushed the U.S. frontier westward throughout the 1800s, the West Coast was developing as well. The discovery of gold mid-century created a population boom that included Chinese who crossed the Pacific Ocean in large steamships to California. Early Chinese immigrants landed in San Francisco, hoping to find wealth on Gold Mountain. Chinese immigrants were seeking a better life, just like everyone who flocked to Gold Mountain for the gold rush. It was a time of hope and a time to potentially get really wealthy. But many found little more than anti-Chinese hostility. Chinatowns sprung up in cities, forming ethnic enclaves of support. In the years after the gold rush, a major contribution of the Chinese was constructing the Central Pacific Railroad, helping connect the East and West Coasts. Thousands of young male laborers were recruited to lay track from Sacramento eastward, encountering difficult terrain and dangerous conditions through the rugged Sierra Nevada mountains. They were in camps, working in extreme conditions, difficult terrain, and very harsh winters and brutal summers. So it was a lot of work, a lot of manual labor for not very much money at all. But the men proved themselves capable, efficient, and courageous. From blasting 15 tunnels through solid granite to laying 10 miles of track in one day, the railroad Chinese persevered through years of brutal work and harsh exposure to the elements. Using hand tools to create tunnels and cliffside road beds was slow and tedious. This painting shows a quicker but more dangerous method that was adopted. Workers were lowered down by rope to create holes for explosives. Once lit, the men were quickly hauled up to escape the blasts, though accidents were frequent. The monumental Central Pacific Railroad project was finally completed in 1869, expediting transcontinental trade and communication. Right away, these Chinese laborers needed new work, and many made their way to cities. Chinatown districts there provided connection, but the growing population often faced racial hostility and violence. In 1882, the Chinese Exclusion Act shut the door on most immigration and all citizenship. Until restrictions began to be repealed in 1943, most Chinese lived separately, with leaders who helped their communities continue to move forward. Gradually, the achievements and perseverance of these pioneers paved a path for future generations. There were aspects of Chinese culture accepted in America. Popular festival days like the Lunar New Year often drew multicultural crowds, as shown here, to see the parade and dragon dance. It was colorful, there was loud music and singing and dancing, and so it was something that most non-Chinese had not seen before. And it was a really beautiful festival, and a lot of fun was had by all because it was new and it was a way for people to come together after so much discrimination. Many of the paintings in the exhibition are in conversation with supporting historical images. Some photos were source material for the artists, others are in contrast. I like this pairing of the parade painting with this photograph of a Chinese cowboy at a 1916 roundup. Both depictions represent immigrants embracing other cultures found in the American West. And this painting of a Chinatown herb shop represents an important aspect of Chinese culture brought to America, the ancient practice of traditional Chinese medicine. Here, a doctor takes his patient's pulse, and an apothecary weighs medicinal herbs for tea. Drinking tea for wellness is deeply rooted in Chinese culture, and white patrons supported these shops as well. These portraits reflect stories of some of the few Chinese women who came to the U.S. in the 1800s. Generally, women were either merchants' wives or trafficked here against their will. They had a bit of a difficult time and they were seen as property, but the stories here in the exhibition really highlight the stories of success. In the case of this portrait, Yuan was brought to San Francisco in the 1860s at age 13. She later married and settled in Wyoming. The community called her China Mary instead of learning her name, a common occurrence of the period. This larger-than-life painting of her represents the Chinese immigrant women whose names and faces have been lost to history. The artist, referencing a black and white photo, reimagines her with bright colors and bold brushstrokes. She revitalizes Yuan's story here, surrounding her with red Indian paintbrush and a western meadowlark, both representing the state of Wyoming where she prospered. Finally, we have Angel Island Immigration Station in San Francisco Bay. It was the Pacific port of entry for 300,000 immigrants from 1910 to 1940. Created as a detention center for interviews and medical inspections, it also helped enforce Chinese exclusion laws. Tens of thousands of Chinese applicants went through weeks or months of detainment amid harsh conditions and interrogations. In contrast to Ellis Island on the East Coast, which was seen as a gateway to a new life, Angel Island was often the first of many hurdles for Chinese immigrants. To convey their frustration and worry, some Chinese detainees carved poems into the barrack walls. Leaning on the rich tradition of poetry in Chinese culture, perhaps the act of expression provided some comfort. Though layers of paint and putty covered the markings for decades, the poems are a testament to the determination of Chinese immigrants to make their mark in America. I leave you with a painting of a dandelion seed pod. These flowers are found all over the world. Their seeds are carried by the wind, and where they land, they take root and thrive, just like many immigrants have done here. For the artist, the dandelion represents her own tenacity and ability to thrive in the face of adversity. The James Museum would like to thank the many partners and lenders who helped make this show possible, including Quinn She of the Suncoast Association of Chinese Americans for his consultation and translation of the entire exhibition. From the Gold Rush to Angel Island, this exhibition reveals often overlooked but significant contributions and perspectives of Chinese settlers that deepen our understanding of U.S. history.